to steal her diary. When I went to Rebecca's apartment to collect my things after our messy breakup, I was focused on one thing: getting out as quickly as possible. 3 years of relationship debris scattered across her living room like emotional shrapnel. My books, my coffee mug with the chip she always said she'd fix, the jacket I'd been looking for since winter. The leather notebook was tucked between my copy of On the Road and the photography book I'd given her for Christmas. In my haste to escape before she returned from her sister's, I grabbed everything in one swift motion and shoved it all into a box. It wasn't until 3 days later, unpacking in my new studio apartment, that I realized the notebook wasn't mine. The first page stopped me cold. Today, I watched him through the coffee shop window again. He orders the same thing every Tuesday: large Americano, no sugar. He has this way of tapping his fingers against the counter while he waits, like he's playing invisible piano keys. I wonder what song he's hearing. My hands trembled as I turned the page. This wasn't Rebecca's handwriting. Hers was sharp, angular, the penmanship of someone always in a hurry. This was different, flowing, thoughtful, like calligraphy made casual. I've been thinking about what loneliness really means. Is it worse to be alone, or to be with someone and still feel invisible? Makes me feel like furniture sometimes. Useful, present, but not really seen. Maybe that's why I keep coming back to the coffee shop. At least there, my solitude feels chosen rather than imposed. Rebecca. I flipped through more pages, my heart racing. The entries were dated, spanning nearly 2 years. This mysterious woman had been documenting her life, her thoughts, observations about love and loss and the small moments that make up a day. But more than that, she had been watching someone, writing about him with the kind of detail that suggested ... He smiled at me today. Actually smiled, not just that polite nod people give strangers. I dropped my pen, and when I bent to pick it up, our eyes met. For exactly 3 seconds, I felt seen. Then my phone rang. I asked him where I was, and the moment dissolved. I sat on my bare mattress, surrounded by moving boxes, reading by the weak light of a single lamp. Page after page revealed a woman trapped in what seemed to be the same suffocating relationship I had just escaped. But unlike me, she hadn't left. She was enduring, observing, writing her way through the loneliness, and she was falling in love with a stranger in a coffee shop. I've named him James in my head, though I have no idea what he's actually called. James feels right for someone who reads Murakami novels and wears that same faded blue sweater every week. Today, he stayed longer than usual, typing on his laptop. I pretended to read, but found myself memorizing the concentration on his face. There's something beautiful about watching someone work, the way they disappear into their own world. The handwriting became more hurried as I turned the pages, as if her feelings were outpacing her abilities to contain them. I think I'm going crazy. I've started timing my coffee shop visits to coincide with his. Tuesday mornings, Thursday afternoons, Saturday at 2 p.m. He's become the punctuation in my week. The semicolon between the running sentence of my days with her, where I had to stop reading. Something about this felt deeply wrong, invasive, but I couldn't stop. Her words were like a drug, honest, raw, beautiful in their vulnerability. She wrote about music the way other people wrote about weather, casually dropping references to songs that made her cry, or albums that reminded her of childhood. Summers, Johnny Mitchell was playing today when James walked in. Both sides now. The irony wasn't lost on me. I see relationships from both sides now. The fairy tale version I used to believe in. And this gray reality where love feels more like habit than choice. But watching James order his coffee, I remembered what hope used to feel like. I found myself searching for clues, trying to piece together who she was. The coffee shop references placed her somewhere in my neighborhood. There were only 3 places within walking distance that served Americanos. She mentioned working at a gallery, having a sister in Portland, owning a cat named Virginia Woolf. But it was the later entries that made me feel like I'd been punched in the stomach. Oh, brought someone home last night. I heard them through the bedroom wall and pretended to be asleep when she came to check on me. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was the relief. For a moment, lying there in the dark, I felt free. Then morning came, and with it, the familiar weight of being grateful for scraps of attention. I set the diary down, hands shaking. Rebecca had cheated on me too, near the end. But this woman, this writer, whose name I didn't even know, had been living in the same apartment, experiencing the same betrayal. While I was probably sitting across town, feeling sorry for myself, the final entries were dated just 3 weeks ago. I followed James today, not in the stalker way. We just happened to be walking in the same direction after he left the coffee shop. He went into that bookstore on 5th Street, the one with the cats in the window. He spent 20 minutes in the poetry section, running his fingers along the spines like he was reading Braille. When he bought a collection by Mary Oliver, I almost cried. Of course, he reads Mary Oliver. Of course, I've decided to leave here tomorrow. I can't keep using James as an escape from my real life. It's not fair to any of us, not to him, not to me, not even to R. Who deserves someone who doesn't spend their days imagining different worlds? I'm going to find my own apartment, my own coffee shop, my own reasons to wake up in the morning. The final entry was just one line. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. I stared at that last page for a long time, recognizing the Amelia Earhart quote, feeling the weight of this stranger's decision to choose herself. Then I flipped back through the diary one more time, looking for something I'd missed. An address, a phone number, a name, anything that might help me find her. That's when I saw it. Tucked into the back cover, a small photograph had worked loose from the binding. I pulled it free, my world tilted sideways. The photo showed a woman with dark hair and paint-stained fingers, sitting in what looked like an art studio. She was laughing at something beyond the camera's frame, her face lit with a genuine joy. But that wasn't what made me feel like I'd been struck by lightning. It was the date stamp in the corner, 3 months ago, and the fact that I recognized the laugh, the paint stains, the curve of her smile. It was Emma, Rebecca's roommate, the quiet one who always seemed to vanish when I came over, who spoke in soft tones and moved through the apartment like she was trying not to disturb the air itself. The woman I'd exchanged maybe 50 words with in 3 years of dating a roommate, Emma, who had been living in the same space as my relationship fell apart. Emma, who had been documenting her own heartbreak while witnessing mine. Emma, who had been falling in love with a stranger in a coffee shop while I was falling out of love in her living room. But there was one more revelation waiting for me. One final twist that made everything else pale in comparison. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the photos from Rebecca's birthday party last year, the ones I'd never bothered to delete. I scrolled through until I found what I was looking for, a wide shot of the living room. Everyone scattered around with drinks and forced smiles. There, in the background, almost out of frame, was Emma. She was sitting on the windowsill, holding a book against her chest like armor. And the book, I zoomed in until I could make out the cover, was a collection of Mary Oliver poems. My hands were shaking as I reached for my jacket. The same faded blue sweater she'd written about. The one I wore every week without thinking about it. The sweater I've been wearing to the coffee shop on 5th Street every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 8 months. Ever since I'd started freelance writing and needed a place with decent Wi-Fi and stronger coffee than I could make at home. I was James. I had been her stranger, her semicolon, her reason to hope. While I was mechanically going through the motions of a relationship that had died months before its official burial, she had been watching me, writing about me, falling in love with the version of myself I became when I thought no one was paying attention. The irony was so sharp it took my breath away. We had both been trapped in the same toxic space, both looking for escape, both finding it in stolen moments and borrowed dreams. She had found hope in watching me. I had found purpose in her words, written about someone I didn't realize was me. I sat in my empty apartment, holding her diary, and realized I was facing the most important choice of my life. I could return the diary quietly, pretend I'd never read it, let her disappear into whatever new life she was building. It would be the safe choice, the respectful choice, or I could find her. I could walk into that coffee shop tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., her favorite time to write, according to her entries, and order my usual Americano, no sugar. I could wear this blue sweater and bring a book, maybe that Mary Oliver collection she'd watched me buy. I could sit at the table by the window, the one where she used to watch me, and wait. Wait to see if the woman who had unknowingly saved me from my own numbness might be willing to let me return the favor. Wait to discover if the connection she'd imagined might become real. Wait to find out if love could grow from the seeds of mutual loneliness and accidental understanding. I looked at the final entry again. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. Tomorrow morning, I would find out exactly how much courage I possessed. Tomorrow morning, I would discover whether the woman who signed her entries with just the initial E might be willing to meet. The man she had unknowingly taught to see himself as worthy of being watched, being wondered about, being loved. Tomorrow morning, I would return her diary. But first, I would become the James she had written into existence, not the stranger in the coffee shop, but the man who had been shaped by her words, who had learned what it meant to be seen through her eyes. The man who was finally ready to see her in return